Nagbabalik po ang No Holds Barred program ng Diyos at Bayan. Ating tatalakayin ngayong gabi ang paksang Balik tanaw sa 2016, pagtanaw sa 2017. Bago po natin simulan natin talakayan para sa isang masugid na televiewers, inyo pong napapanood ngayon ang Diyos at Bayan mula alas 8 hanggang alas 9 ng gabi dito po sa Light Network Channel 33. At ang Light Network Channel 33 napapanood sa iba't ibang cable channels na nakikita ninyo sa inyong mga TV screens. Muli pong mapanood ang Diyos at Bayan sa GMA News TV, Channel 11 at GMA Channel 7 sa mga araw at oras na nakikita ninyo sa inyong mga TV screens. Maaari ring mapanood ang Diyos at Bayan via live stream at Facebook Live. Pumunta lang sa website, link na nasa inyong screens. At bago po tayo dumako sa pagpapakilala sa ating mga guest resource persons, sa mga bago pong sumusubaybay sa programang ito, dahil ito po ang first program natin sa taong 2017. Ang Diyos at Bayan po ay naka-anchor doon sa salita mismo ng Diyos na sinasabing, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord." Psalm 33 verse 12. Ito po ay nandoon sa peso denomination ngayon. Mula nung magsimula ang Pinoy Administration, nalagay po ito. Kung ang dollar currency po ay merong "In God We Trust", ay yung pong Psalm 33 verse 12 ay nandun po ngayon sa peso denomination, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord." Sa Tagalog po, mapalad ang bayan, ang Diyos ay ang Panginoon. At ang programa pong ito ay nakasalig din doon sa salita ng Proverbs 14:34. "Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach or a disgrace to any people." Last but not the least, ang programang ito ay binibigyan diin ang Psalm 89 verse 14. "Justice and righteousness are the foundations of God's throne or the seat of power." At ito po ang dahilan kung bakit may ganitong programang Diyos at Bayan. Hindi po pwedeng paghiwalayin ang Diyos na lumikha ng langit at lupa at ang ating minamahal na bansa. Tayo po ngayon ay pinalad na makasama po natin ang tatlong personalidad sa paksapong ating tatalakayin. Actually po, hindi na ho dapat ipakilala sapagkat by word na po ang pangalan nila sa ating kasaysayan, lalo na po sa oras na ito, ang dating National Security Advisor known as the National Security SAR ng Ramos government and Director General ng National Security Council during the time of former President Ramos. Siya po ay author ng libro na kilalang-kilala rin po sa academic world, sa political world, "To Put the House in Order." Siya po ang author nun. At saka yung pong isa, napakahalaga, "We must level the playing field." Kaya po nawala yung monopoly, oligopoly nung panahon ng FBR administration. And the unfinished revolution of JTA. Sino po yung JTA? Yung po ang author ng huling libro niya, "Endless Journey." Walang iba kundi si former National Security Secretary Jose T. Almonte. Magandang araw po, General.
Magandang gabi. Salamat, Brother Eddie.
Nasa kaliwa po ni Secretary Almonte ay ang Vice President for Public Affairs ng University of the Philippines, Executive Director ng UP Center for Integrative and Development Studies, former din ng UP NASIPAG, National College of Public Administration and Governance, and noted political analyst si Dr. Edna Co. Magandang gabi po.
Magandang gabi po, Brother Eddie, at sa lahat ng ating mga sumusubaybay.
Nasa kaliwa po ni Professor Dr. Edna Co. ay, of course, ang kilalang-kilala sa media, ang Editor-in-Chief ng Filipino Star ngayon, President ng Philippine Press Institute, si Brother Al Pedroche. Good evening,
Good evening, Brother Eddie, and sa lahat ng mga taga-subaybay ng Diyos at Bayan. What a great privilege to be on the program at makasama ang dalawang iba pang pinagpipitaganan at iginagalang ng mga personahe sa ating lipunan.
Talagang qualified ka na maging chief editor ng Filipino Star ngayon. Ano? Anyway, as ating paksay Balik tanaw 2016, pagtanaw sa 2017. Kayo pong sumusubaybay sa programang ito, meron po itong public participation. May kalayaan po kayong tumawag sa mga telephone numbers na nakikita ninyo. Pwede kayong magtanong, pwedeng magbigay ng komento. Siguro po ang unang tanong kong masasabi ay alam po nating lahat na ang Pangulong Rodrigo Roa Duterte ay nahalal. Sabi ng iba'y amazingly, with large margin dahil doon sa slogan ng pagbabago. Pagbabago at ang unang binigyan po niyan diin ay ang kanyang declaration of war against illegal drugs, crimes, and corruption. Sa nakaraang pong taon, siguro nung matanong natin ang ating ginagalang na former security advisor, Secretary Jose T. Almonte. Ano po ang evaluation ninyo sa nakaraang 6 na buwan na po ba ito? Nakaraang 6 na buwan ng Duterte presidency vis-a-vis his campaign promise on change or pagbabago?
Well, Brother Eddie, ang aking pananaw, si President Duterte could either come out as a great Filipino president or the opposite.
Or the opposite?
Let me explain. You know, it's after President Ramos, the only president who tried to continue the basic reforms that the Ramos government started is President Duterte. Now, these are 3 basic areas for reform. During the time of Ramos, we call this the national enablers, or the enabling environment that we have to establish in order that Filipinos could follow the Constitution and the laws, in order that we will be in a position to address poverty, inequality, corruption, crimes, and drugs. Now, ano ba itong tatlong ito? Now, President Duterte has been very aggressive, for instance, in terminating the internal war in the Philippines with the longest communist insurgency and the separatist movement. Number 2, he's trying his best to repair our broken politics. As we all know, every after election, a set of oligarchs form the national policies and also implement them for their own interest. Now, the Duterte government is trying to change that. And the next one is really what I call to level the playing field, both in the land and non-land sectors. Now, dito po, hindi ko pa nakikita masyado yung initiative ni President Duterte. But ang aking pananaw, if he succeeds only on the first one, he will be able to acquire political capital that will allow him to reform 2 and 3. Because these are the most difficult, because the problem in our country is the personalities who may be the problem of our country are also the solution. So to look for that in between is really a challenge to the political skills of our political leaders. Now, ito pong war on drugs, etc., sa akin, these are just the consequence of our basic problem. If we solve our basic problem, because we have to acquire the strength, the skill, the capacity to address, for instance, how do we exploit our natural resources if we're not strong enough as a people? How will we address poverty, inequality, etc.? The only way to do that is to really simultaneously address these 3 problems. And it is only President Duterte who is addressing this. Now, if he fails, he will be remembered in history only for his extrajudicial killing in the war against drugs. That's why I said he could either be a great president or the opposite.
Alam po ninyo, General Almonte, sa Christian world, meron pong events na nakaraan na meron 3 propeta mga credible prophets from United States at saka isa from India, nagkakaisa sila na meron silang nakitang darkness na somewhere in around the so-called Malacanang Palace, ano? Na ang conclusion nila, Duterte's administration could be an instrument for reformation or revolution. Ito po specific. Oh. Kasi in darkness pala na yun, hindi na mapasok ng light because of yung pinag-aralan sa Bible na we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities in the air, powers of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places. Ayaw ng kaaway, headed by Satan in the Bible, na magtagumpay ang Duterte's administration. Kaya may spirits of witchcraft, sorcery, and greed na nakita yung mga propeta na yon. Pero they're positive na this government is a potential government for genuine reformation. Or, merong or revolution. Kaya kung sinabi nyo, it could be great or it could be a failure. No? Professor Edna, ano po ang inyong assessment for the last 6 months ng Duterte's administration vis-a-vis yung mga pangako niya?
Actually ho, parang ang nakikita ko, maiksing panahon pa naman yung 6 months, no? Pero nakikita natin, lahat ho ng tao, ino-observe very keenly yung mga attempts ng ating Pangulo ng pagbabago. At I think there are 2 things about this. Yung pong isa, yung ang lakas ng appreciation, paghanga, at yung expression ng suporta sa administration dahil dun sa kanyang napakalakas na political will to show the change and to really bring about the change, no, the reform. So ito po ay hinahangaan at tinitingala ng maraming kababayan natin. Sa akin, isa ito dun sa mga kaagad-agad nagpakita siya ng mahusay na determinasyon kung paano magkakaroon ng upturn dun sa sistema ng malakas na pamumuno ng oligarchs, ng elite, ng middle class, no? At ito gusto niyang magkaroon ng turnaround. So ito po hinangaan ng marami nating kababayan. And it's a source of optimism that indeed change will come. Sa kabilang banda, in the last 6 months, nakita rin natin na yung effort pala ng change ay hindi napakadali. At ito ay napaka-komplikado in fact. Because marami sa kababayan natin ay nagsimula ng makaranas at mag-complain doon sa tinatawag na the collateral damage or the cost of pursuing napaka-determinado ng Pangulo doon sa pursuit ng order and peace. Pero may cost itong gustong isagawa at makita ng Pangulo natin. The cost of this is, yun nga, yung sinasabi ng ibang kababayan natin na the extrajudicial killing. At ito ay naging bothersome, no? Nakaka-disturb. Because at the end of the day, human life is very important. And ang sabi nga din ng simbahan natin na parang ang sentro ng lipunan at ng any attempt to change is really the human being and the respect for human being. Even as we want to see the change. So parang sa akin ho, it's a dual parang threading on a dual tracks yung pinakita kaagad na characteristic, katangian ng Duterte administration. But it sa akin ho, it shows how complicated yung proseso ng pagbabago. Pero nagpapakita rin na andun yung optimism. And that's why so many people support, continue to look up to change.
Well, thank you ho, Dr. Rocco. Al, anong iyong assessment, evaluation for the last 6 months?
Well, ang observation ko, Brother Eddie, we elected a sui generis president. O one of a kind, nag-iisa lang eh. Sa kasaysayan ng bansa, ngayon lang tayo nagkaroon ng isang Pangulo na matatawag na maverick, nagpapatupad ng mga unorthodox approach para lutasin ang mga sari-saring problema ng ating bansa at sa kabila ng mga batikos ng international community, hindi siya natitinag. And yet, narito pa rin yung suporta ng taong bayan para sa kanya. Hindi nawawala yung support, although according to the SWS survey, nagkaroon ng konting decline, but still very high yung paggalang at pagsuporta ng taong bayan sa kanya. Kaya naniniwala ako na for as long as nananatili ang ganitong suporta ng mamamayan sa ating Pangulo, I believe magtatagumpay ang Pangulo natin.
Ito ngayon ang isang parang contradiction na nakarating sa akin. Nung inaugural address po ni President Duterte sa Malacanang Palace, napilitan ako i-tweet ito. Good news to the skeptics. The new president said in his inaugural address, and I quote, "My adherence to due process and rule of law is non-compromising," unquote. Pagkatapos na ilang araw, sunod-sunod ang patayan. Napakinggan ko yung sa Pampanga, iyak ng iyak yung asawa. Driver lang yung posisyon ng kanyang asawa. Napakabait ng asawa niya. Nasakay sa kanya mga illegal drug people yata. Nang rapido yung sasakyan, pati ang asawa niya, patay, Sa Manila, yung dalawang anak parehong napatay. Yung isa, small pusher, yung isa, napakabait daw. Pinapangaralan pa yung kapatid niya, tumigil ka na dyan sa hanap buhay mo na yan, hindi ka makabayad ng apartment. Kasama rin sa napatay. So, yung tinatawag na collateral damage. Well, anyway, yung sa pagbabago, ang ating, may pag-asa ba? Anong tingin nyo? Kasi yung binanggit nyo kanina, General, yung it remains to be seen, yung substantial change, millions of our people are still landless. We have not yet seen a genuine implementation of the so-called comprehensive land reform. Hanggang ngayon, nasa grinding poverty ang millions of our people. Yung war against poverty, against hunger. Ano po ang tsansa? Kasi maraming sasabi, sana yung political will ni Presidente against illegal drugs, gamitin din niya sa massive implementation ng comprehensive land reform law.
Well, Brother Eddie, I think there is a consensus in terms of this so-called extrajudicial killing. I think we all agree that that should not happen. Sana. But my concern, while I agree with that, is another point. Because as I said in the beginning, to me, the most important for this country is to be able to resolve the three basic roots of our problem. Ang problema ko po is this extrajudicial killing and the reactions of the international community against it may derail the political capacity of the president to address these three basic problems. And I wonder if there will be another president who will be as audacious as our president this time. I say this with some amount of little exposure to this during the time of President Ramos. It's a big challenge. And if we can resolve this, then a national consensus could be formed in terms of following the Constitution, the laws, in terms of reforming the nation, etc. Now, if you look at the theme of the President's inaugural speech, there were two ideas that were, I understand, used as an anchor of the speech. One is malasakit, the other is pagbabago. Now, the pagbabago is now trivialized in terms of this extrajudicial killing. Now, I hope the malasakit will come in to be able to manage that in a manner that it doesn't derail what I believe is the basic problems of the nation, which is really our only hope, both domestic and external. Remember, our external relations depends on the domestic strength. And President Duterte, I think, knows what he's doing in terms of, for instance, I'll end after this.
Take your time. Take your time.
What he did in the beginning is to give the entire economic development component of the national enterprise to his economic team under Sunny Dominguez. And the other component, which is you may call in the academy social engineering, I call it in terms of establishing the enabling environment of the nation so that we can acquire the capacity to address our national problems like poverty, like corruption, drugs, etc. Now, he put this under his command. That is why, the economy is moving because it's just proceeding along the previous administration's approach. Now, the president is addressing this personally. So I hope there is hope.
Well, purihin po ang Panginoon. Napakaganda po nung inyong pinaalala na yon na yung mga basic problems since time immemorial naghihintay ng kalutasan, yung war against poverty, hunger, injustice. Pero malakas ang ating pag-asa. Nakaka 6 months pa lang naman ang Duterte Administration. Meron pong katanungan kay Professor Dr. Kono na pag-alaman ko po na kasama kayo sa peace talks. You are playing a significant role ng yung peace talks ng government sa NDF, sa NPA. Alam po nating lahat, ang pangarap ng mga Pilipino, magkaroon o maranasan yung tinatawag na prosperity. Hindi maranasan ng prosperity kung walang progress. Kung wala rin progress ang ating bansa. At hindi magkakaroon ng progress kung walang genuine development. So, yung tinatawag na development, progress and prosperity, kawing-kawing po yun. Pero ang foundation nun ay kung merong peace, yung genuine peace. Pag wala po yung genuine peace, kahit mangarap tayo ng anumang development, progress and prosperity of the people, it could be elusive. Ano po ang score nito? Pero bago po nyo sagutin, isang mahalaga lang pong paalala, huwag po kayong aalis, magbabalik agad ang No Holds Barred program ng Diyos at Bayan.
Now, the world opinion, if I may say so, has been generated by the PCA ruling. So we have to use that very, very carefully.